I call Scott Simpson.
Mr Speaker, it's interesting to be following that member Clayton Cosgrove in this debate. Earlier in the afternoon we were given a very good and fulsome history lesson by the Honourable Chris Finlayson, a history of that once proud Labour Party and their various leaders and their leadership problems. And it's interesting, one aspect that the Minister, the Attorney-General, didn't allude to during his very, very good history lesson today was, of course, the history relating to one Mike Moore, a former leader, who was at one stage the member for Eden. He was the youngest MP in the House at this stage, and in 1975 he was soundly thrashed by Ozzie Malcolm, and then he spent 3 years in the wilderness. And Mike Moore came out of his 3 years in the wilderness as a carpetbagger in Christchurch. And why is all this relevant? Because it's very well known, Mr Speaker, that Clayton Cosgrove, who is not actually famous for very much, but is well known that he treats Mike Moore as a trusted and learned mentor. And so now we're told that Mini Mike is likely to become the carpetbagger Clayton candidate.
Point of order, the Honourable Trevor Mallard. I've said this on a couple of occasions tonight. One must refer to people by their correct names. Scott Simpson.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I understand that Mr Cosgrove will become the Clayton's carpetbagger candidate for Christchurch East. And that's, I guess, following the history and the pattern of his mentor and long-time friend, the Right Honourable Mike Moore. But we're here, Mr Speaker, this evening to discuss and debate the Appropriation Supplementary Estimates Bill and, of course, the Imprest Supply Bill as well. These bills continue the government's very good economic record, their fiscal strategy of careful, prudent, studied stewardship of our finances and the country's books. These bills are about responsible management, Mr Speaker, and a return to surplus being back in surplus in 2014-15. So these are good bills. They're about building a competitive economy, they're about delivering better public services, and more importantly, they are also, for Mr Cosgrove's edification, about rebuilding Christchurch. New Zealand households, Mr Speaker, have had a very tough time over the last few years, as have New Zealand businesses, sir. And we have faced, as a nation, some very challenging times during very challenging global economic circumstances. And, of course, the Christchurch earthquake has been devastating. But whilst those challenges remain, an economy is beginning to, the economic recovery is beginning to occur, and all the indicators now are heading in the absolute right direction. Economic growth at 2.4%, almost the same as Australia, and higher than almost every other developed nation. Wages are growing, the cost of living increases have been modest, and interest rates, Mr Speaker, are at a 50-year low. Household income, sir, has risen 20% in the past 4 years and is expected to rise by almost 20% in the next 4 years. So these are good indicators, sir. They're good indicators for the country and they're good indicators for the people of Coromandel, because the next decade will be one of enormous, great opportunity for New Zealand as we see strong growth out of Asia. And the real challenge for us as New Zealanders is to make sure that our economy is both financially sound and very competitive, sir. So the good people of Coromandel this evening will be listening in, and they will be conscious that as they sit down tonight and listen to this debate in the most beautiful electorate in the country, what's commonly known as the Queenstown of the North Island, they are happy, sir, and they're happy with the direction that this John Key-led National Party government is taking New Zealand. Coromandel people know, sir, that the careful, steady, prudent fiscal management of Bill English and John Key is taking New Zealand in the right direction, that we're on the right track. The fiscal outlook has improved markedly as a result of our sound management, and we're on track for surplus in 2014-15, when, of course, the government will be able to start reducing debt. And remember, when John Key and National came into office, we inherited a set of government books that had debts running to more than 60% of GDP by 2020 and absolutely no prospect of returning to surpluses again in the foreseeable future. But now, sir, forecasts show a surplus of $75 million in the 2014-15 year, and we're achieving this while still spending $5.1 billion on new initiatives in the budget 2013. And so that's an outstanding result. In fact, it's a remarkable turnaround for the government's books, and I'm very proud to be part of the National Party team bringing this turnaround around for New Zealand. Last week I had the privilege of hosting a visit to the Coromandel electorate by the Honourable Nathan Guy, Minister for Primary Industries, and we visited on the Thursday of last week the Ngātia school, which is the Hauraki Plains College, and there they have an agricultural farm, the Haywood Trust Farm, where the school pupils at Hauraki Plains College can learn practical agricultural skills, and the Minister was delighted to see them doing fencing and chainsaw repairs and quad bike riding and all the sorts of good things that young agricultural aspirant farmers want to do. So this new generation of young farmers were learning the skills they need, hard-working farming families, helping produce the very high-value protein products for a hungry world that we will be exporting and continue to export over the next foreseeable future. All the indicators are looking good, and over the next decade or so, New Zealanders will be presented with what could possibly be the most beneficial and superb and favourable trading conditions that we've had in several generations. And so these young students on the Hauraki Plains, they understand the bright future that is ahead of them, and they're keen to get into farming, they're keen to get into agriculture because they understand how important that agriculture will be in our history and going forward into the future. But it's not just farming that will be confronted with a bright future. It's also good to understand that our aquacultural sector will be booming as well. And I also took the opportunity to take Minister Guy up to the Coromandel Harbour. And as I said, we went out on the worst day of the week in terms of the challenging weather. But we went out to see Green Shell New Zealand's mussel farms at Wilson Bay, where the government has doubled the size of water space available to the growth of Coromandel mussels. And so I was very pleased to be with Peter Vaticevic and his team from Green Shell Mussels. Interestingly enough, they won the Export Food and Beverage Award of the Year just the other night, and that was a great news story for them. In Katikati, which is part of the Coromandel electorate, Mr Speaker, there is a company called Puma Darts, where they are exporting their high-quality game darts, the sort of darts that you throw in a board in a pub or a club somewhere around the world, and they are, yes, indeed, they could do that for a leadership dart. They could throw a dart in there in Katikati, and the Puma Darts people could probably find a target for the leader of the opposition. But there they are export-led, they are doing great things on behalf of the New Zealand economy and doing very well. Also in Katikati is a terrific business called Trident, where they are exporting over $50 million a year of their specialised dental products to the world. $50 million a year in export dollars coming out of Katikati. So, Mr Speaker, Budget 2030 continues the message of building momentum, and the budget confirms that New Zealand is on the right track, that the government's on the right track, that the party that is in power is on the right track, and people are liking that, Mr Speaker. Opinion polls in the Herald produced this morning show that New Zealanders are liking that, and they're not liking the prospect of the alternatives that they're confronted with. They don't like that at all. And so, who could blame them? Who could blame them indeed? So, Mr Speaker, responsible management of the government's books, careful, prudent stewardship of the finances is what this government is all about. Nothing weird, nothing wacky, nothing strange, nothing unusual. No printing of money, no borrowing unnecessarily, nothing weird or unusual at all. Just steady as she goes, good, stable government from a good, stable set of hands on the Treasury benches, and that, sir, is something that the New Zealand public are enjoying. They're warming to, they like it, they like the bright future that is available to us. These are good measures. I commend them to the House.
I call Jamie Lee Ross.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. As we near the end of this debate and we've had to listen